My boss gave me one rule as a 911 dispatcher. If a call comes from the old house on the county line, you let it ring. Last night, I answered. I've been a 911 dispatcher for 12 years, the last 7 on the graveyard shift. You think you've heard it all after that long. The drunks, the domestics, the panicked fumbling for words after a car crash. It all becomes a kind of white noise, a rhythm of human misery you learn to navigate without letting it touch you. You have to. It's the only way to stay sane. My district is a sprawling, sleepy county that dies after 10 p.m. It's mostly soccer moms and retirees. The worst we usually get on a weeknight is a noise complaint or a teenager who's had too much to drink at a bonfire. The job, for me, had become a cycle of caffeine, fluorescent lights, and the low, constant hum of computer servers. I was burned out, deeply existentially tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. The calls were just blips on a screen, voices to be processed, categorized, and dispatched. I was a human switchboard for other people's worst days. The first call came on a Tuesday, about 3 months ago. It was 2:47 a.m., the deadest hour of the deadest night. The line lit up on my console, but not in the usual way. It wasn't a cell call with a GPS ping or a landline with a registered address. It was just a raw signal, designated as unregistered VoIP. Not unheard of, but rare. I clicked it open. 911, what is your emergency? Static, a thick, wet sound, like listening to the radio underwater. It crackled and popped, and underneath it I could just barely make out a sound, a whisper. Hello? Can you hear me? It was a child's voice, a boy, I thought, maybe 7 or 8. He sounded like he was trying to talk without moving his lips. This is 911, I repeated, my voice a little louder, a little clearer. I can barely hear you. What is your emergency? The static swelled, almost swallowing his voice whole. He's back. The man in the mask is back. A chill, cold and sharp, went down my spine. It was a professional chill, the one that tells you this is real, this isn't a prank. Okay, son, where are you? I need an address. Hurting mommy, the whisper came again, breaking with a sob. The static sounded like a swarm of angry insects now. Daddy's asleep on the floor. He won't wake up. Son, I need you to tell me where you are. I can't send help if I don't know where you are. My fingers were flying across the keyboard, trying to get a trace, but the system was kicking back errors. No location data, no subscriber info, nothing. The old house, he whispered, his voice fading. At the end of the road, please. Then the line went dead. Not a click, not a hang-up. It just ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a line of static and terror, and the next it was just a dead channel. Even without an address, the old house at the end of the road was enough. Out on the western edge of the county, there's a long, unpaved road that just sort of peters out into the woods. And at the end of it, there's one house, a big, derelict Victorian thing that's been empty for as long as anyone can remember. It was a local legend, the kind of place kids dared each other to spend a night in. I dispatched a patrol car. My senior officer, a guy who's been on the force before I was born, came back over the radio about 15 minutes later. His voice was flat, laced with the kind of annoyance reserved for rookies and time wasters. Dispatch, car 12 here. The property is secure. No signs of forced entry. Place is boarded up tighter than a drum. There's nobody here. Hasn't been for 50 years by the looks of it. 10-4, car 12, I said, my own voice betraying none of my confusion. Are you sure? The caller was a child. He said his family was being attacked. There was a sigh over the radio. Listen, the dust on the porch is an inch thick. The boards on the windows are gray and rotted. If someone's in there, they're a ghost. We're clearing the call. Tell whoever's playing games to knock it off. I logged it as unfounded and tried to put it out of my mind. A prank, a sophisticated one maybe, using some kind of voice changer and a VoIP spoofer. Kids these days. I was too tired to care. A week later, at 2:47 a.m., the same line lit up. The same static, the same terrified, whispering voice. He's in the house. I can hear him walking." This time, I felt a knot of ice form in my stomach. "Son, is this the same caller from last week?" A choked sob. "He has the mask on, the one with the scary smile. Mommy's screaming." Faintly, through the storm of static, I thought I could hear it. A woman's scream, high and thin and distorted, like a sound being played backwards. "I'm sending help," I said tightly, my voice tight. "Stay on the line with me. Can you hide?" "In the closet. He's coming up the stairs."
They didn't. They just looked at each other. It was a look I'd never seen before, of a grim, tired resignation. My supervisor sighed, a heavy rattling sound, and rubbed his temples. The older dispatcher, she just stared at the article, her face pale. "So it started again," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "What do you mean, started again?" I asked, my voice shaking. "What is going on?" My supervisor sat down heavily. "Kid," he said, and he looked 100 years old, "we need to tell you about the man you replaced." He told me the story, the dispatcher who had my seat before me. He'd been a good man, sharp, dedicated. About a year before I was hired, he started getting strange. He was obsessed with a specific address, the old house at the end of the road. He kept sending cars out there, insisting there was a child in trouble. The patrols always came back empty. He started pulling old files, spending his days off at the library. He became withdrawn, paranoid. He claimed he was getting calls no one else could hear. "We checked the logs," my supervisor said, his voice low and serious. "The system never registered the calls he said he was taking. We pulled the audio recorders for his console. There was nothing on them but dead air. We thought he was having a breakdown, stress of the job." My blood turned to ice water. The system, it doesn't log the calls for me either. They just show up on the screen and then disappear. They don't go into the call history. The older dispatcher nodded slowly. "We know, it's the same. He told us what the calls were about. A little boy, a man in a mask." I felt like I was going to be sick. "What happened to him?" I whispered, though I already knew the answer. "One night," the supervisor continued, his eyes fixed on the linoleum floor, "he took a call. We saw him on the console, talking, his face ashen. He was typing a report. Then he just stopped. He stood up, grabbed his jacket and his keys, and walked out without a word. The call was still active on his screen, but none of us could hear anything on it. We just saw the open line." "Where did he go?" "He drove out to the house. His car was found parked on the road the next morning. Engine was cold. Doors were locked. He was gone." The silence in the room was absolute. "We searched," the old dispatcher said, her voice cracking. "The police did a grid search of the entire woods, dogs, helicopters, the whole 9 yards. They went through that house from the attic to the cellar. They found nothing. No sign of a struggle, no footprints, no him. He just vanished, wiped off the face of the earth." I stared at them, my mind struggling to process what they were telling me. Why didn't you warn me?" I stammered. "How could we?" my supervisor shot back, his voice rising with a frustration that had clearly been festering for years. "Hey, new guy, welcome aboard. By the way, this console might be haunted, and the last guy who sat here disappeared. Don't worry about it. You'd have thought we were crazy. We thought he was crazy until you came in here today with that same damn story." He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine. "This is what you're going to do. The next time that line rings, you do not answer it. If you answer it by mistake, you hang up immediately. You do not talk to him. You do not engage. You terminate the call and you clear the line. That's an order. Do you understand me?" For the next few weeks, I was a ghost myself. I did my job on autopilot. Every sound, every flicker on the screen made me jump. I dreaded Tuesday nights. I drank so much coffee I could feel my heart rattling in my chest just to stay sharp, to stay vigilant. I thought about quitting. I thought about just walking out and never coming back. But where would I go? Then, last night, it happened. It was 2:45 a.m., my knuckles white from gripping the edge of my desk. The minutes ticked by like hours. 2:46. My mouth was dry. My heart was a drum solo in my ears. 247. The line lit up. The unregistered VoIP. It felt like a physical blow. I flinched back in my chair. My training, my instincts, every fiber of my being screamed at me to answer it. There was a child in trouble. That was the job. But I remembered the pale, haunted face of my supervisor, the story of the man who had vanished. You terminate the call. I let it ring. Once. Twice. The flashing light on the console seemed to sear my retinas. My hand hovered over the button, trembling. I couldn't just ignore it. I had to answer. I had to. I clicked the button. 911, what is your... The static was a roar, louder than it had ever been. It was a physical presence in my ear, a wall of noise, and through it, the boy's voice came, not whispering this time, but screaming. It was a raw, ragged sound of pure agony and terror. "He's got me! He's got me, please! He's taking me! Please, sir, don't let him take me! Help me!" The sound ripped through my professional detachment and tore right into my soul. This was it, the climax, the moment the boy was taken, replaying for all eternity. My hand flew to the keyboard to dispatch a car, a purely reflexive action born of years of training. But I stopped. My fingers froze over the keys. He's gone. This already happened. It's not real. The boy was sobbing now, his screams turning into choked, gasping pleas. "Please, I promised. You said you'd send help. Don't leave me." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I was a 911 dispatcher. My job was to send help, and I was going to sit here and listen to a child be abducted or murdered and do nothing. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice thick. "I'm so sorry." I reached for the terminate button on my screen. My finger was a millimeter from the glass. This was it. I was choosing to save myself. I was choosing to let him go. And then the screaming stopped. It wasn't a fade out. It was an abrupt cut, as if a switch had been flipped. The roar of the static dropped to a low, sinister hum. The line was still open. Silence. My heart was in my throat. Did I do it? Then a new sound came through the headset. It wasn't the boy. It was a man's voice, a whisper, just as terrified as the child's had been, but older, hoarser. It was distorted by the same underwater static, the same swarm of electronic insects. It was a voice trying to push its way through an impossible distance, through time itself. And it was a voice I felt deep in my bones I should have recognized from an old staff photo in the hallway. The whisper was faint, but utterly terrifyingly clear. "He's here." I froze, my finger hovering over the screen. The voice was ragged, desperate, broken. "He sees you, through the line. He's looking right at you." A cold dread, so absolute and profound it felt like death itself, washed over me. I slowly, involuntarily looked up from my console, across the darkened dispatch center, towards the plate glass windows that looked out into the night. There was nothing there but the reflection of my own terrified face in the glass, my skin pale in the glow of the monitors. The whispering in my ear continued, a final, chilling plea from a place beyond hope. "Please, get me out of here."